Into the Canal, Volume 2, spawned in full, deep, and bizarre feline dimensions, but not abnormal. A drop of liquid star stuff beaming from emerald eyes that became true as they approached close, inching and closing in, the pause breaching uncertainty and becoming fully stark. It was only until the tiny muzzle of her button nose pet the side of his knee that the boy realized the vision was not just an illusion. And the outline of the cat, known only as Slippers, came to be completely seen. They shared so much in common. Both seemed to prefer solidarity, and both spent time soothing and nurturing the other. He thought about it often. The nurturing began, this time, with a prance of the two front legs of the feline under the boy's knee, and a climb with her hind legs to fully sit her form into the cross-section between his folded legs, below his lap. In what happened in the blink of an eye, they were, for now, together again. In that moment, everything else just seemed to fade away. The distant lights, the cold bite of the air, even the sound of rain dropping. Cars down the street seemed to lose their engines, and nothing else at all mattered but the small yet large being that sat comfortably in his lap. She would lean forward, place her head and chin against his chest, her eyes staring softly back into his own. The moment of privacy seemed to last a lifetime. She was a little wet. Some water had gotten into her fur somewhere, but his shirt soaked it up. He didn't mind. He knew before long she'd dry up. Reaching forward, slowly at first, his hand found its way to her back. There was no sway in her spine. If there was a problem with her bones, nobody knew it, and neither did she. His hand seemed to graze, pet, and perturb the fur side to side, swaying, soothful, and carrying motions. She closed her eyes. For a moment, the green, the jade and emerald, kept tightly behind lids of furry black hair. Time stands still It's so precious. Almost seeming as if something miraculous was happening. Something abating the normal terrors and hardships of life. They seemed to slip away. They seemed to become nothing. Atomic to those frightening things. Moments like these, where Slippers and the boy sat, the feline embracing the front of his stomach, cooing and nuzzling softly, creating a place, finding perches to relax while the sun creeped from utter grassy pitch black to a narrow, thin slither of golden peach, like a gradient of fruity flavor splashed into a blackberry smoothie. It was dawning now. They would be interrupted soon. He knew he didn't have a whole lot of time left for these moments. And the first to be affected by the sun's new rays were shadows far, far away in the distance, transcending, overcoming their deep purple and blue shackles, just for now, as the energy of the sun began to empower them. The dots of yellow that sits between these buildings quickly turned back into natural, gloomy black as their occupants awaited the return of color into the world around them, all from behind thin glass. Though far away, the changes were beginning. A sudden tap and a rap on the leg and chest took the boy away from his focus. The soft creature nuzzling against him was beckoning for his attention thither. He knew soon they would need to begin their journey, or it might not be in time to make it home before dinner. He had to shift his weight forward, and so Slippers gently pawed to the left and slinked off before finally the X shape of his legs rotated. He put his hands on the wall behind him and stood up. The crisscrossing pathway between the boys' front and back yards always made him feel like he knew where he was going. It led, though winding, across and over to the back fence. A fence that separated him from his adventure, from his exploratory exploits. And though the clouds overhead were still letting out small drips, he knew soon he'd be inside that embankment. The long stretch of man-made waterways. Each step over oil slicks of water on concrete, bringing him closer. The concrete seemed porous. It hadn't rained in a while. And when it did, it tested the ground like this. Subtle shifts in his direction led him past the hedge that blocked their backyard from the backyards of those across the waterway. He could hear the soft changes from concrete to puddles that Slippers was navigating through while following him. She was close enough. He would have liked it if they had been closer, though. The hastily made stone steps that led down to the landing of dirt just before the fence greeted the boy. He slowly, carefully, trying not to slip, put one foot onto the first step, his weight moving down, letting go of the second, and moving forward. His left foot arches, he beams down, and slowly takes the steps until he's all five at the bottom. He can feel his muscles sore and stiff from sitting for so long waiting, awakening to what comes next. The partition, the plateau between him and his neighbors' backyards, a long, tall, wooden fence on top of a concrete slab, disguised by mounds of dirt and earth, plants, small trees, ferns. But between them, between the fence of his backyard and the person who lived in the domicile beside him, there was the smallest crook, a crack, a subtle, small, tiny place that a boy around the age of 9.5 could fit inside of just perfectly. He crossed the dirt and stooped over. There was specks, small little streams of water had created. Dots of rain, droplets forming on each little crossbeam of metal. The rectangular, and then the diamond-like shapes. Left hundreds, maybe thousands of little drops of rain, shining like tiny diamonds, ready to fall when it got too hot. And he knew it would. It's why they needed to hurry. Reaching forward his hand, at first gently with a fingertip touching the fence. The small pieces of metal, thin little strips, arced, curved, bent, cross-sectioned between each other. They were like bubble toys, some of them with pieces of water strewn long enough that you could see the small formation of a rainbow between them. He stood and admired them for a second before something brushed past his right leg. Looking away and down, the cat urged him forward, and so he followed that urging, ducking his head, a few drops of water catching his soft yellow shirt